Let us try to understand how to balance chemical equations. I have taken up the very common example of photosynthesis reaction wherein glucose, which is C6H12O6, is reacting with oxygen to produce carbon dioxide and water as the products. The first step when we balance any chemical equation is that you first write down LHS, which stands for left hand side, and RHS, which stands for right hand side. Draw a line in the middle. Write down the number of atoms of each element on the left hand side over here and the number of atoms of each element on right side over here. This particular method which we are following right now is also commonly known as hit and trial method. So what do we do in the beginning? So here first I'm going to write the number of atoms present of each element. So as we can see here, atoms, first write the atoms which are there in serial order. We have carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and we have oxygen here also and we have oxygen here also. So I'm going to write it twice. So number of atoms of carbon are 6 here. Number of atoms of hydrogen, as you all can see, it is 12. Number of atoms of oxygen is 6 for the first atom, and it's better that we write it separately so that there is no confusion while we are balancing equation. So these are the atoms on the left hand side. On the right hand side we have carbon. Only one atom of carbon is there. Always prefer to write the same sequence that you followed here. If you've written carbon, hydrogen, oxygen here, follow the same sequence on the right hand side. This in order to avoid any sort of confusion. Hydrogen atoms are 2, as we can see here in this formula, and oxygen, first atom of oxygen has 2, so let's write 2 here, and the second atom of oxygen has 1 atom only. Okay, so in this element, in this molecule, we have only 1 oxygen atom. This is the first step. Now let us write this equation once again, and this is, we call it as step number 1. So you can number them as step 1, and in step 2 we are again going to write the same equation and then see how we are going to go about balancing the equation. Now when we have a look at the equation, we clearly see carbon is 6 on this side, carbon is 1 on this side. Hydrogen is 12 on this side, hydrogen is 2 on this side. Oxygen is 6 plus 2, 8 on left hand side. However, it is 2 plus 1, 3 on the right hand side. That means none of the atoms are equal on both the sides. So what do we do now? In order to balance this equation, the next step that we are going to follow is that we are first of all going to see the atom which is the least in number. If you look on both sides of the equation, we come to know that carbon is the element which has the least number of atoms. So this element has the least number of atoms. We start by balancing on the right hand side first. So how do we go about it? Again, we write left hand side and we write right hand side over here. Put a line again. Carbon atoms are 6 only over here. Hydrogen are the same 12, and oxygen is 6 and oxygen is 2. Now on the right hand side, carbon atoms was 1. What do we do to make this 6? Because this is 6 on this side. We simply put a 6 in front of CO2. Whatever we are putting here, we make necessary changes over here below in our atoms. So hydrogen remains 2. Oxygen, this oxygen has changed from 2 to, it was 2 earlier. So now it is 6 multiplied by 2. So this thing should be very clear that whatever number of atoms we are writing, any number which we are writing here, it is basically giving us the number of atoms of each element here. So here, since there are 2 atoms of oxygen in the molecule of CO2, if you put a 6 here, it becomes 6 2s are 12. Okay, so this becomes 12 atoms of oxygen, and the other atom remains as it is because it still has 1 oxygen. Now we make changes here in carbon also. We multiply this 1 with 6 because there were 1 atom of carbon, so it becomes a 6 now. So carbon has become equal on both sides. Now what we see is not equal is hydrogen still remains unequal on both the sides. Oxygen is 6 here and oxygen is 6 twos are 12 on this side. So this was our step number 2. So now we move to the third step. Now we come to know that hydrogen and oxygen needs to be balanced. Now which element do we start balancing? Carbon has already been balanced. We take the next element with the least number of atoms, and that's hydrogen. So let us start balancing hydrogen now. So we write our equation once again. So it is 6CO2 and H2O this time. This thing needs to be taken care of. So left hand side we write each and every element. Right hand side also we write each and every element. Draw a line in the center. So carbon is 6 on this side, hydrogen is 12 on this side, and oxygen is 6, oxygen is 2. Carbon becomes a 6 now, hydrogen is still 2, this oxygen has become 6 to the 12, and now this oxygen is 1. So we need to make this hydrogen on this side equivalent to 12. How can we do that? Simply if you put a 6 in front of H2O, we simply get 6 twos are 12. We multiply these two, it becomes 2 into 6, that is 12. So our hydrogen has also become equal on both sides. Carbon is already equal on both the sides. But we need to make changes to oxygen as well. So oxygen is now 6. This oxygen has become 6. This was 12. This oxygen becomes 6. Now we clearly see carbon and hydrogen have become equal on both the sides. Now the next step that we need to do is we need to balance oxygen atoms on both the sides. How can we do that now? We simply see that oxygen is 6 plus 2, 8 on this side, but here it is 12 plus 6, 18 on this side. Now how can we make this total as 18? We try not to change anything in this formula because we've already seen that carbon and hydrogen have become equal on both the sides. So instead of making any changes to this formula, we make changes only in the formula of O2. So what we do here simply is that this is 6. We can make this, we need to make the total of it equivalent to 18. So if we see here, it is 12 plus 6 is making 18. This is 6 here, so let us make this one, this oxygen, let us try changing this so that the total becomes 18. So if you put a 6 in front of O2, what do we get? 6 twos are 12. So this becomes 12, and 6 plus 12 is, this total comes out to be 18, and this total is also 18. So we see very clearly carbon 6, hydrogen 12, hydrogen 6 twos are 12 on this side. Oxygen is 6 plus 6 twos are 12. So 6 plus 12, 18. 6 twos are 12 plus 6, 18. So this gives us a completely balanced equation. So that means our final balanced equation is that we get is C6H12O6 plus 6O2 giving 6CO2 plus 6H2O. So this is our balanced chemical equation.